Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the latest episode of Supernatural, Peace of Mind. And this was an okay episode. It wasn't completely horrendous, but the thing that irks me is, again, we get a so-and-so episode where both of these stories should have been episodes in their own right to be more fully explored. So the episode starts off with a pretty interesting usual cold open. We see this guy goes to this girl, says, "Come on, leave with me," but she's like, "I can't," and decides to run out of town. He's like asking some dude at a gas station for a cell phone, and it's really kind of weird because the town that he left was kind of 50s-ish, and he comes up on like a modern day convenience store gas station, and he's trying to use the phone, but something's going on with it, and his head explodes, and just the clerk's reaction to everything is just like, "Oh God, this is screwed up." We then get into the bunker and we see that Cass is trying to get through and figure out what's going on with Jack. He's like, "I feel different, but I don't think my soul's completely gone," kind of thing. He is also trying to get the snake to eat since it won't eat, and he's trying out all these various different foods. Cass, of course, goes to Dean to try and get him to do something to try and get a feel for how Jack's doing with the whole soul situation since Jack really looks up to him. And Sam comes back in, and that he has been going out on hunts pretty much nonstop because every time he goes into the bunker, he sees all of the dead red shirt apocalypse people because of Michael killing them, and he feels as a failure as a leader because of that. I'm like, okay. And that's interesting ground for his character to be used, but it's not used to its full potential because it has to deal in this episode of real estate with what's going on with Jack's soul. So he had found the whole thing about the head explosion thing. Cass decides to go off with him, so we kind of get more of a Cass focus because Sam's kind of in his head messing around with that kind of whole deal. And that's kind of an interesting part. Again, it still has to juggle with what's going on with Jack. So let's delve into the Cass and Sam bit first. So they go around, they ask the clerk some questions, like, "Wow, that's kind of weird." Cass really has no tact as usual, talking about how how the dude's head exploded and all of that, and like it was scanners or whatnot. They say that this town is like one of the happiest places on earth they go in. It's really kind of weird. And they do an effective job of being like, okay, this town really has some mystery. They try and get these people to kind of talk about the Conrad dude whose head exploded, but they're going off to a bake sale, and the dude asks what Sam was holding. It says a cell phone, and it sticks in the dude's craw as they like go up. He's like, "What the hell's a cell phone?" So they go to the milkshake place, and at first you kind of get a feel that this is a Lotus Eaters kind of thing, because the first milkshake is free, and of course Cass doesn't drink it because he doesn't eat. Sam doesn't think, "Oh, this is pretty good." They get to talking with the mayor dude who also owns the soda shop, and Cass pretty much goes that the dude's head exploded like a melon on the sun. Everybody just stops and looks at him and like, "Yep, that's the reaction we wanted." He's like, he was staying at this one place and everything, so Cass and Sam go off and try and get some information from the place. First from the lady, just like really 50s-ish, talking about how she doesn't rent out the rooms to young women because it's improper and all that. And then she goes off. They find that Conrad had been getting and giving love letters to the girl that was working at the soda shop that were pretty explicit. And of course, at first they were thinking maybe this is a witch thing. And then thinking maybe there's like a Lotus Eaters kind of Greek mythology kind of thing. Well, Cass and Sam go to sleep, wake up the next day, Sam is gone. One of the residents is the guy that had the cell phone thing stuck in his craw, figured out that he had given his daughter a cell phone, that this wasn't his house, that this wasn't his wife. He tries to go outside, head explodes. Okay, what's going on with this head exploding kind of thing? Of course, Cass is going around trying to figure out what's going on. He goes to the soda shop, and he's like, "Okay, where's my partner?" And she's like, he had went to go see what was going on with the other dude's head that exploded. All right, fine. He goes to the house. The wife answers the door, everything's going kind of weird, and we figure out that Sam has now replaced that husband dude going by Justin Smith. And Cass is trying his damnedest to figure out how to deal with the situation. And it's pretty refreshing to see Sam and Cass being together in the kind of buddy cop situation, and Cass having to deal with it and rescue his partner. Of course, Sam is stuck in the Justin Smith mode, and he's not having any of it, and pretty much tells Cass to leave. And of course, it has been put into effect that no cell phone would pretty much work here or anything because of whatever is going on with this place. So we then get to what's going on, and Cass is trying to figure out. He goes back to the soda shop, and that's when the mayor dude kind of brings into effect the other people, because Sam was pissed off with everything with that, so was the wife, and we find out that the mayor dude is the one that's been changing everybody. We don't get anything much deeper than this, though. He essentially is leveling all powers of a god slash archangel kind of effect, because he can kill people randomly. He can pretty much make a setting work to his kind of whims, and he's not as strong as an archangel, but we don't get anything deeper than that. And his daughter has kind of similar powers because he can't really affect her either. Of course, he gives a spiel about how this town was pretty much dying and he wanted it to be a happy place. He had heard these voices or whatnot, and he just made it into a happy place. He wanted a soda shop, and a soda shop appeared. And so it had nothing to do with the milkshakes or any Lotus Eater kind of stuff. He was just doing whatever psychic mumbo-jumbo to make people happy. And instead of having people trying to sniff around, he is just fucking exploding people's heads that have any chance of threatening that, which would be counterproductive to what had been going on. So it's like, what? Okay. So he sends his lackeys and Sam to take on Cass, and Cass is trying to get through him, talking about how he knows how it is to feel like a failure as a leader and all that. It finally gets through Sam as he, like, stabs the angel blade that he took off Cass near his head. And that would have been a better thing to get through if we had had time, but they're on top of each other, and it's like a 5-minute sequence, if that. But they go out, they go to confront the dude, but he's now got also not superpowers, but he can also force throw Cass, because it's kind of funny, because just in the scene previously, we see Cass completely and utterly whooping ass. Like, action style. It's like, what the hell? And then he gets thrown across, like, not 10 minutes later. It's like, God. But, of course, his daughter's getting fed up with this and pretty much stops him from pretty much getting Sam ready to have his head explode, and tells him to be happy, and he goes inside of his own head. Cass is like, oh, it's a beautiful world in there. He's not going to hurt anybody ever again. And that's kind of the resolution of that. Then they intersect with Jack and Dean at the end of the episode. I'm like, okay, this would have been a cool kind of hunting style story that would have dealt with the aftermath of what had happened if it had been explained more or delved into more. Because the monster of the week for this, it was almost like they weren't even really trying. I mean, the situation was effective enough, but I mean, they didn't even try and explain lore-wise what was going on or what he was doing or if he was a monster or whatnot, because it didn't look like he was a monster, and then suddenly he's got these powers to affect all these people in a town and have things show up and explode people's heads, and we get nothing. Granted, I understand you don't need to spell out everything of this, but it's like, what did we just do? Are you going to leave her there? Because she says that she's not going to do anything like that, but what if she doesn't want these powers? What if she doesn't know anything to control these powers? Wouldn't you want to bring her in for that? I mean, shit, if she could have done that, she could have been really fucking helpful with any kind of angel scenario or whatnot. Well, it doesn't affect the angel scenario, but they could have affected some kind of a thing, because they had shown that Cass was not affected with what was going on. But, again, they could have been effective with dealing with any kind of other things going on, any kind of other monsters, or pretty much got it to the effect of yeah, with Michael's things, well, granted, since his grace was like superpowering him, but yeah, she could have really pretty much dodged those bullets with all that kind of stuff. Granted, she probably wouldn't have been able to affect Angel since that was, at least in this iteration, explained a little bit. Other than that, I'm like, okay, I guess this is just what we got now. While this is going on, we see Dean and Jack just pretty much having the top shelf talk about like not having a soul kind of thing. Where it's like he's trying to connect with him and it's not really working. He doesn't really care about the snake, but he wants to help Jack. We see him try to be like, hey, maybe he likes bacon because the snake's not eating. He's like, do you like bacon? That was kind of funny. But they're like driving down the road. One of the things that we're trying to get used to for seeing if Jack has a soul or not, or is good or evil or not, was his choice of junk food to eat. If one was angel food or one was like devil's food. I'm like, wow. The amount of subtlety in that is astounding. I wouldn't have had a problem with it if it had been more gradual, but since this had to be smushed in with another story, you can tell that it has to get accelerated and certain things have to be shown to be like, this is what we're trying to do. I'm like, okay. So we find out that Dean has taken him on a road trip to see Donatello. Good idea. And then he just leaves them to talk while Dean not fiddles, but like just stays away from the snake. And talking about like the nature of having a soul and everything and not having a soul, and Donatello talks about how the universe is like bright and everything, but there's like a black hole at the center. And he's like, well, what I do to deal with that not having a soul is I ask, what would Mr. Rogers do? And he's like, I don't know who Mr. Rogers is. Well then take someone you really admire and everything. He's like, Sam, Dean, and Cash. I'm like, okay, what would the Winchesters do? And that seems to help Jack because he doesn't feel nothing, but he feels really different. And of course, we see this as they're taking their coffee and having the dark and the light and all that. It's like, okay. I wouldn't have minded it if it didn't seem so accelerated and so on the nose. I don't need everything to be completely obscure Dark Souls style where I have to read a pinky toe ring to understand the lore of a god that I'm fighting and why I'm fighting him. But it just seems so simplistic and that it could have been done so much better. It's like, okay, but this is working out. It's like, okay, if I come up to a situation, ask what the Winchesters would do. Go back. He's kind of looking at the snake and everything and smiling. And we get back to the bunker. Sam is coming to terms with what's going on, saying that, yeah, I'll get through this. And Dean's like, yep, all right. Gives him some space. Cass goes off to talk to Jack. But Jack's in his room. He's got the snake. He's like, listen, you're not eating. You really miss your friend. Sam and Dean would want you to see your friend again, so I'm going to send you to heaven to be with your friend. And then he dusts and kills the snake. And we see that Cass has been seeing this in the background, and that's where the episode ends. Now, I know this is supposed to be shown as a kind of bad decision, but again, I think that's more of a kind of simplistic take on this. It's just how it's framed and everything. Because I understand how that line of thinking can be like, oh, okay, if you get to the point where you see humans as these snakes, you're like, oh, you're going to be sad forever. Let me just end your life so that way you can be with the person that you love. This, I think, was a good example of a good thing that Jack was doing because the snake wasn't going to eat. It was going to die anyway. And he went through a logical process of being like, okay, you're not going to eat. You want to see your friend. I'm going to make this as painless for you as possible. And he does. I know this is supposed to be like, oh, okay, this is a first huge big step. I would say yes and be happy with that if they're able to execute on it. And if they're juggling it with other stories going on, I don't think that'll be given the room that it will be. It's just going to be accelerated to a point that we'll start getting A or B decisions And we'll have to see how many A's or B's he chooses before he either goes good mode or bad mode. And I like how this is going because I don't think he is going to go complete bad Lucifer mustache twirling villain mode. If anything, he would be not as nasty at, well, I can't even say that this Michael was nasty. He was just there. He would be more of a kind of utilitarian approach in how he would try and deal with the problems of the world. And if he had seen that monsters and everything were doing such a bad thing, and since he's all powered up, he might go on a crusade to wipe out all the monsters and try and wipe out as many bad influencers on the world as possible. And I think it could be a better situation of what was attempted to be done with Castiel in season 6. But again, the track record that I've seen of executing on this is what makes me be like, you got good potential. You haven't really been hitting that potential. So we'll have to see how this goes and where this sets up for the end of the season. I like how this is being laid out to be the kind of push to end out the season, but since Michael was taken out, at the point he was taken out, I was like, okay, how are we going to get through the rest of the season? And I think it's just going to be close to just piggybacking certain stories to try and help flesh out what's going on around Jack as well. So we'll have to see how that goes. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.